Hello, all you beautiful people out there. If you're new, welcome to my channel. Why don't you go down and hit the subscribe button and ring the bell so you don't miss any episodes. For my fans and subscribers, welcome back. I love you. You are the backbone and the lifeblood of this channel. Today I'm going to be talking about Greek mythology, Battle for Troy. Let's go! So, to recap a little, remember when we left off that Helen of Troy's father picked a groom for her on the condition that her other would-be suitors would fight for the groom's honor should it ever be breached. In the last episode, the goddess of discord, upset at not being invited to a wedding, tossed a golden apple on the wedding table marked for the fairest. Well, the goddesses looked to Zeus, and Zeus didn't want the job. Imagine that. So he gave the job to a mortal, Paris, who liked his pleasures and gave the apple to the goddess of love, who promised the most beautiful woman. True to her word, Aphrodite made Helen fall in love with him. Helen ran away from her husband and took refuge in Paris's hometown of Troy. This, of course, activated the oath, and the Greek army marched on Troy. However, the battle for Troy was long and very difficult. The Greek army came with mixed motives, some indignant at Paris's breach of hospitality, others honoring the vow, and some feeling guilty for Iphigenia's death. While the Greek leaders was Agamemnon, their greatest warrior was Achilles. Achilles had a mortal father but a water spirit, Thetis, as a mother. When he was a baby, his mother dipped him in the river Styx to make him invincible. However, she held him by the heel, so where she held him, the water did not touch, leaving him vulnerable. Thetis knew her son was vulnerable and even foresaw his death, so she tried dressing him as a girl, but Odysseus saw through the meager disguise, and Achilles actually wanted to fight because he was a great warrior, and of course great warriors fight. But the Trojans had their own hero, the warrior Hector, Paris's brother. Priam, their father, was too old to fight, so Hector fought in his stead, even though Hector didn't want to. He hated Paris for the breach of hospitality. He saw no reason to keep Helen from her lawful husband. Even though he was a mortal, he did foresee his own death and the fall of Troy. Yet he also felt honor-bound to defend his people from the Greeks as long as he could. For years, the Greeks and Trojans had fought, with a regrettably large loss of life on both sides. The war divided the Olympians as well, with Aphrodite on Paris' side, of course. Ares, her lover, naturally took her side, and as the god of war, could render effective aid. Hera and Athena sided with the Greeks because they felt slighted by Paris. Poseidon sided with the Greeks since many sailors paid homage to him. The Greeks turned Apollo against them because they had captured the daughter of one of his priests, giving her to Agamemnon as a concubine. The priest asked Agamemnon to release her, but he did not, so the priest turned to Apollo for redress, and Apollo listened. Even though he was the god of healing, he could also inflict sickness. So he shot arrows laced with some sort of plague into the Greek army. The men who had survived the first fight died in their tents. This led the army to demand that Agamemnon send the girl back before they all died. Even though the king was angry and ashamed, he did let the girl go. The plague stopped, but the damage did not. As compensation, Agamemnon decided that he was going to seize the girl that Achilles had taken for his concubine. This girl's name was Briseis. He sent armed messengers to Achilles to take Briseis. Afraid of Achilles' anger, they apologized profusely, telling him that they were embarrassed. Achilles did not hurt them, letting them know that he knew where to place the blame. After this, he refused to fight in Agamemnon's army. When Thetis heard about this, she was angry and demanded that Zeus punish the king. Although he was willing to intervene, he could not use this thunderbolt because Hera would know who was behind it. He settled on sending a dream to Agamemnon, in which if the king went against Troy without Achilles, he would win and have the glory to himself. So the Greeks attacked and the Trojans pushed them back. After both sides were exhausted, someone made the brilliant suggestion that the two contenders for Helen's hand should fight it out for themselves. Then the armies fell back. Paris and Menelaus then faced each other. Paris struck first, but Menelaus fought harder. In fact, his sword broke, and he would have torn Paris apart with his bare hands had not Aphrodite swept Paris to safety. The Greeks went through the Trojan ranks until the Trojans convinced them that they actually hated Paris and were in no way trying to protect him. They had no idea where he was. As a result, Agamemnon declared that Paris had lost and the Trojans should hand Helen over. Since both sides were sick of war, they complied. This should have been the end of it, but Hera and Athena wanted Troy destroyed, not just Paris deprived of Helen. In pursuit of this goal, Athena got a Trojan to fire an arrow at Menelaus. Both his judgment and aim were off. Outraged, the Greeks attacked again. Since Achilles was absent, Diomedes, their second-best fighter, pressed the attack, stopping only when he saw Ares at Hector's side. Diomedes was brave, but he wasn't a fool. He knew a god could not be beaten. Hera was angry and thought that Ares was being a bully, so she asked Zeus to give her permission to do something about Ares, which he did give. Athena then went to Diomedes' side and guided his spear so it punctured Ares' side. Ares, as a god, was used to being invulnerable, so it surprised him that he got hurt. Oh, and he also yelled and complained and went back to Olympus to nurse his wounds, but got no sympathy from his parents. Diomedes and the Greeks pressed on, and the Trojans fought back. Although the Greeks pressed hard, they could not break through the Trojan defense. However, one of Hector's brothers saw that Troy had lost the gods' favor and asked Hector to ask the queen to plead for mercy. Hecuba, the queen, offered gifts to Athena, hoping the goddess would take pity on the women and children, but Athena would not listen. Hecuba was devastated. Meanwhile, Hector found Paris at home and persuaded him to fight again. Helen cursed herself but maintained that she was a victim of the gods, while Hector went back to the battle after speaking with his wife, Andromache. Andromache didn't want him to go back to open battle, suggesting instead that he guard a weak spot in the city wall. Her father and brothers had already been killed, and Hector was the only thing she had left. Even though Hector loved his wife, he told her that they both knew Troy would fall, and Hector would rather die fighting than see his wife and children harmed. Hector was resigned to his fate, but when he joined the battle again, Zeus himself was at his side, because Thetis had begged him. With the gods' encouragement, the Trojans drove back the Greeks. Only nightfall saved the Greeks. Afterward, the Greeks told Agamemnon that his mistreatment of Achilles would cost them their lives. Begrudgingly, he admitted that he was wrong and sent messengers to Achilles, offering to return Briseis if he would come back and also give him gifts. But Achilles' pride had been hurt. He told the messengers that he was sailing for home the next day, and they should do the same. When the messengers brought the message back, the Greeks despaired, but they were loath to leave without Helen and their comrades, so they steeled themselves for battle. Hera was angry, but instead of chiding Zeus, she seduced him, which distracted him from the battle. Poseidon fought for the Greeks, and they drove the Trojans aft. Hector got knocked out. The Trojans cried to Zeus, who blamed Hera for distracting him. Zeus ordered Poseidon to withdraw, which he reluctantly did. Hector had recovered and led the Trojan charge. He tore down the defensive wall of the Greeks. Patroclus begged Achilles to help, but his friend wouldn't listen. So Patroclus snuck into Achilles' tent and put on his armor. The Greeks fought with renewed hope. The battle surged toward the walls of Troy again. Hector knew he couldn't defeat Achilles, but fought anyway, surprised when the not Achilles fell in front of him. He took off the armor to find that it was Patroclus who had fallen. A messenger told the sad news to Achilles, who swore to revenge his friend. His mother Thetis reminded him that his death would follow Hector's, but he didn't care. He did, however, take one last gift from her: weapons and armor made by Hephaestus, smith of the gods. Well, friends, that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, hit that like button, press the subscribe button, and if you want to know when I come out with new content, hit the bell next to the subscribe button. All social media links are in the description. Please consider joining this channel. The join link is in the description, and the join button is under the video. Keep learning and searching for truth. Here are a few videos from my library. If you have not watched them yet, go ahead and watch them and tell me what you think. Until next time, friends, stay safe and goodbye.